Hello, sir.
What's up? How you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all today. I can't complain at least.
Yeah, it's I guess it's better than a loss.
Definitely.
Not by much.
I will take it. It doesn't feel necessarily all the same as a normal, regular win, but at this point, after it's been since forever, whatever works. At least at the end, they kind of dominated.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Well, we'll talk about it. Geez. There's a lot of ways I thought we would get to this point. I didn't think 28-6 was gonna. It's really hard to win a game by 22 points and feel that like everything went wrong. But somehow we're here anyway.
The anger level after this win too is just obnoxious now at this point, just because of so many the way the game played out, some of the events that occurred in it, the hatred of Dennis Allen and anything Pete Carmichael do. So yeah, it's rough dealing with the negativity after winning. Even so, I'll say that much.
I mean, all I have to say is like one thing that I think Saints fans would benefit from is just like take some time every week and just go around the league. And a lot of people do this already. It's not like I'm not accusing anyone, but like if all you do is watch Saints games and like make your opinions off that, go look at what happened between the Vikings and the Raiders today. Was 3-0. And the Raiders' final 2 plays of the game were an interception and a fumble. Josh Dobbs got benched.
You mean the guy that looked like an all-star against us?
Josh Dobbs, is he like the Jeremy Lin of the NFL?
Yes.
Kind of feels that way, doesn't it?
Right. There was that. It was a nice run, and then he had an expiration date on him.
Poor guy.
I mean, we'll see. You could bounce back after that, but who knows after this pathetic game?
I mean, you got benched for Nick Mullins. I mean, like, man, and they won 3-0. But that's the funny thing too is everyone told me it's like, wow, the Raiders, they fired their head coach and suddenly they're better. That's not better.
Well, there you go. Like Derek Carr could have, the Tweedledbirds around his head, his shoulders hurting, and he's got like rib cartilage missing, but that man is still playing.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been a long day, but we I guess we could start the podcast here, kind of just vamping and letting people find us. We have a good number in here now.
All right.
But yeah, whenever you're ready, let's just get the podcast going.
3, 2, 1. Welcome inside Black and Gold, a winning edition. These Saints coming out on top over the Panthers, 28-6. A game that you could call interesting. Maybe some would call it that. Another would call it some bad football, I guess, for the most part. But in the end, there were some intriguing plays, some nice touchdowns, big special teams moments. And the best part, Jeff, is in the end now we're at least talking about a victory and not going, oh, woe is me, a 4th straight loss.
Yeah, well, so we were going in, and this morning we talked about this, and kind of my prediction is, someone asked if they should bet 6, the Saints with the 6-point cushion, and I was like, I advised against it, which is why, like, hey, don't take my betting advice. I'm not good at it. Like, genuinely speaking, like, don't take my betting advice. But I said, like, I don't like it because I have a feeling the Saints are going to win this game.
You're talking UConn, sorry.
Yeah, I can give you UConn betting advice.
There you go.
But like UConn basketball specifically, that's it. And men's basketball, not women's basketball. Women, I don't know about 25-point spreads or whatever it is. But like my whole reasoning behind that was like, I don't like that bet because I have a feeling like the Saints are going to win this game. Like I wasn't worried even during the game. I was like, they're not going to lose this game. Even as horribly as they were playing, it's like the Panthers are that bad. But you look at it and you're like, they're going to win this game, but they're going to do it in a way that everyone's going to feel gross walking out of this building. And that's exactly
Ding, 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 ding,
they
ding.
covered. I don't think I have ever watched a less satisfying 23-score victory in my life than I saw today. It's like I gave people a hard time about booing. Boo. Boo if that's the offensive performance you're watching. Go right ahead and boo. I don't have a problem with that. That was gross. The interception before halftime, it was a bizarre one. Like it the last 2 weeks, Derek Carr has had the ball punched out of his arms by his own offensive lineman. And he has also had a ball get batted down, deflect off a different offensive lineman's head, and bounce right back into the arms of the guy who batted it down. He also threw it right at Derek Brown. So I'm not saying it wasn't a terrible interception. It's just
right.
That happens throughout the course of a game. Like, guys bat balls down. Typically they don't catch them off a rebound. Anyway, so we're going to talk about this game 28-6. We're going to get into this segment. We're going to talk a lot about the Erik McCoy, Derek Carr blood feud that apparently went on in the third quarter of that game. I talked to Erik. I asked Derek about it. DA talked about it. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to play it all because I know people want to hear about it because it's like one of the only interesting things to talk about coming out of this game, other than
some big drama from the game. Exactly.
Right. Bad football. And the reason I wanted to ask everyone individually about it, and I asked them basically the same question, is like, when you see something like that happen on the field, the initial reaction is going to be like, these guys hate each other, right? It's clear the locker room is broken, this and that. And, whether you believe what they're saying or not, they're kind of, the way they talk about it, it's like and Derek literally said this is it's kind of like brothers arguing. Like, I've gotten in a fight. You're getting into the worst fights ever with like your family members, right? But it's like they're still your family members, that sort of thing. That's kind of how they're playing it, and we're going to hear about it. So that's kind of where they're approaching from. Either way, we'll talk about it. We're going to talk about what didn't work in this segment. Second segment, we're going to talk about what did work, kind of because I think there were, outside of the passing offense in this game, I think there were a lot of positive things. But when you're talking about the Saints right now, it is impossible to disassociate the rest of the team from the anemic passing offense that you see and like the Derek Carr of it all, right? And so, but I do think independent of Derek Carr in this game, there was a lot of good that happened. So we're going to talk about that in the second segment. Then we're going to do a mailbag in the final segment. And so if you have questions, comments, get them in there. We'll talk about it. But this first segment, I do want to get into that fight on the field because it was bizarre, and it's funny because earlier this season, back when everything was all sunshine and rainbows in training camp in the preseason, Derek was talking about Erik McCoy, and he said, like, most of the centers I've dealt with are these sore and agitated individuals, but Erik is always this kind of like upbeat, happy guy. And it's honestly just kind of, in retrospect, it's very funny that it was, like, because we've seen Derek have blow ups. We haven't seen really anybody blow up at Derek. Today that happened. And it happens to be the guy that Derek spends all day reaching under his butt. These are guys who have to be close. Physically, they're close, right? Like, that's an interesting, that's always a fascinating relationship to me. Because it's like it's like this guy has his hand like up your butt all for 3 hours for the entire week. And now this is the guy who was like, I don't know. It's very funny to me. But like, when you saw that, what was your reaction when you saw that? Because I don't know how much they showed of it on TV, but like Erik, it kind of felt like if James Hurst wasn't in Eric's way, there might have been a punch thrown. Like, it wasn't just like arguing. Like, there was like, he was kind of like, Erik was like, doing the,
at first it didn't really strike me until I went back and had to look, hearing about folks talking about it with social media. So saw the video replay there, and it's you don't typically see a guy like Erik McCoy that worked up. He's very mild mannered, the gentle giant type.
Yeah, right, and that's why it was so bizarre. And so first, let's just hear from Dennis Allen, because I think that's just what we'll do. Hear from Dennis Allen, then we'll hear from Erik McCoy. I think I just said Derek McCoy. And then we hear from Derek Carr. Right? So let's start. Yeah, Derek Carr, or Derek McCoy and Erik Carr, right? All right. So here's DA.
Erik and McCoy had an exchange of words. Is it concerning at all that your quarterback's been in a couple of these things on the field?
No, look, this is a highly competitive business that we're in, so I don't think anybody gets too sensitive. Guys want to win, and that's really what this is all about. So, look, we addressed it. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's water under the bridge. Let's move on. You know what I mean? Let's move on.
When it's two team captains yelling at each other, one has to be held back. You don't
Look,
feel like that's a concern for team chemistry overall?
I think if you're ever in a highly competitive environment, and things aren't going the way that you want it to go, yeah, there's sometimes that you get frustrated. You lash out a little bit. I'm glad that both of them, have the balls to at least stand up and fight. You know what I mean? So, this isn't like a, hell, my wife and I argue. It happens. So let's don't make too much of it.
So you would say that this is something that you've seen before with teammates and team captains?
Look, these kinds of things happen on the field. They happen on our sideline. They happen on our opponent's sideline. They happen in other NFL games. So I wouldn't read too much into it. I think that's two highly competitive guys that want to win.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, can I finish?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I just think when you have competitive guys and things aren't going the way that it needs to go, guys, they get pissed, and sometimes they express their emotions. And then you get over on the sideline, you calm down, and then you come back out and you regroup and you go. And that's what we did.
I did appreciate the "Can I finish?"
DA getting a little fiery. All right.
There's some Kanye West vibes going on there.
Yes,
I'm gonna let you finish. No. So before we go on, there's two things. One, I call bullshit on the idea that is just a normal thing that happens. Like, yes, you do have altercations. Yes, you do have arguments and disagreements. They do not typically rise to that level. And when you're talking about a quarterback and a center, two guys who kind of have to be in lockstep, and you expect them to typically be on the same page. Like, that's a bit more than just, it's a frustrating environment. That said, he's not wrong in that it does happen. This is not the first time I have seen, a quarterback and even a center get into it. And so St. John Butler, he pointed this out, and this is 100% accurate. There was a game where Peyton Manning was mic'd up. And he and Jeff Saturday got into it on the sideline because Jeff Saturday was saying, we should run the damn ball. And Peyton was like, just snap the ball. It's like, he's calling plays. And it's hilarious because if you go, you can find it on YouTube because after about 2 minutes of them just going at each other, Peyton goes and sits down with the quarterbacks and he's like, guys, I'm mic'd up. and it's like Derek wasn't mic'd up for this game, but for example, Johnny Hecker was, and I'm fascinated to hear his take after he got wiped out by Nephi Sewell. But who I don't think he punted in the game after that. I don't know if he physically could have punted. Either way, that's an aside. But I do think that DA is always going to be the pull your punches type guy. He's not going to call anybody out. I do think it's not as minimal as he's making it out to be, but it's also not a mission critical issue the way people are going to pretend it is in terms of no team has ever survived this, right? Pat Mahomes was going nuts on the sideline today and when the Chiefs lost to the Bills, right? The truth in it is that there is a lot of intensity going on and tempers can flare, but what do you have on that?
To me, I will say though, what happened afterwards is pretty vital. The team got their shit together and scored a touchdown.
Well, right. One thing that we can say is that when Derek gets yelled at or booed, he seems to get better, right? The other day he got booed in the first quarter and suddenly he started playing better. Today, Erik yells at him and he starts playing better. Anyway, that is one thing that I'll say for Derek is he doesn't seem to get rattled in those situations. He was playing like crap for 3/4 of this game, but it doesn't seem like those situations get to him. And so I guess that's a positive trait, right? Anyway, here is what Erik McCoy had to say about it. I don't have the video, but this is just audio, so we'll play it.
Can you just talk about what happened between you and Derek Carr in the game?
Yeah, we just had a disagreement. Emotions are high. My emotions were high. His emotions were high about how things have been going through the game. And I lost my cool. So I would like a public disagreement deserves a public apology. So we talked about it already, person to person, but out loud I would like to say, Derek Carr, I am sorry. I let my emotions get the best of me, and that's not okay.
Was it maybe just a culmination of emotions in general, just trying to get the offense going?
Yeah.
Was it a boiling point that hit?
I think it was just frustration. He was tired of getting hit. I was tired of getting hit. And it was just, I lost my cool. I did. And like I said, Derek Carr, I'm sorry. We're good. I love him. He loves me. We're on the same page.
So he didn't say anything to you or anything like that? You just lost your cool?
I lost my cool.
Eric, not to belabor this point, but I think when people see the center arguing with the quarterback, they're going to say, well, this is just a sign of distrust in the locker room and things are going on in the locker room. And so you would say that that's not the case, that this was just something that occurred on the field?
Yes, no. I don't think there's any distrust in the locker room. Like I said, I love Derek Carr. Derek Carr loves me. We hash things out, and we're going to be good going forward. And like I said, I take full responsibility for my actions. It's very unbecoming of me to lose my cool like that. And yeah, we're good. Like, we had a kumbaya moment over there in the locker or in the training room. But no, that was me.
Gotcha. By the time he came over and sat between you and Caesar on the bench, was it kind of just like, just have it out there?
Yeah. It was just emotions passed. He came over, he apologized, I apologized. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Can you just talk about what
Not very. Oh, hold on. Sorry.
That's how grown men
repeats
act.
Emotions are high.
Unless I
Emotions
turn
are
it
high.
off.
Emotions
So
are high
there you go.
about how things have been going through the game. And I lost my.
Shut up, Eric. Yeah, I just say it's not very gentlemanly of me. It's not unbecoming. It's very funny. But that's Eric. That's why, like that is Eric's approach. Like, that's how Eric typically is. That's why when you see him, of all people, blow up. And Cesar Ruiz was also like pretty fired up about this. One thing, like when I was standing behind them the entire time, like Lynn Bowden comes over and kind of daps him up and says, like, you're good. Alvin comes over and tries to calm him down. Jari Evans, Doug Marrone, they're all around him, and it took about 5 to 8 minutes. Like, I think Derek was cooling off over there and Eric was cooling off. And then Derek comes over and sits between them, and, they just talk, and like, I was wondering if that was going to happen. That was my biggest question when I was kind of standing there waiting, was like, is Derek just going to let this ride and go back onto the field as if nothing happened? Because it was like, you were getting pretty close, right? Like, it was like not that far away from like the eventual end of this drive, but Derek did go over and sit down and talk to him, and like they hashed it out. Like, it wasn't anything that, like, it's not like they just stopped blocking for him. Like, that's you don't want to mess with your linemen, right? Like, your linemen have your life in their hands on every play. And I don't think, I think Eric kind of made it pretty clear there.
Yeah, like you mentioned earlier this season, we saw Derek get a little too emotional on the field. And I don't know, maybe that's one of the characteristics of this team. They let their emotions get the best of them too many times. Surprisingly, we've seen that, which we haven't in the past. It's usually, we used to have like the guy like CD Deuce causing other teams to have the blow-ups, and now we've seen our own guys having the blow-ups. And granted, it's not per se a specific opponent giving it to them. It's just in general, they seem to be on the field, and I don't know, just hasn't been all rainbows and sunshine, as they say.
Sure has not. Like Kyle Turley comes to mind of like a psycho, right? Like, but it's definitely a thing. And so I did want to like give both sides of the equation here a chance to answer that same question. So here's what Derek Carr had to say when I asked him.
I know, I'm sorry to belabor this, but
You're fine.
People see the quarterback and the center arguing throughout a game on television. It's going to be perceived as this is just something bubbling out of the locker room. This is something that's happening that we're now seeing.
Yeah.
What would you say to that? And does that perception matter?
The perception of it, no, that doesn't matter. To say, I've always been honest with you guys, to say that there was a problem before, we had a great week of texting each other and practice and laughing and having fun and all that kind of stuff. So me and Erik have no issue. In the moment, something happened. The reason doesn't matter. Everyone wants to know the reason. Everybody wants to know the why and what. It doesn't matter. We were both right. We were both wrong. At the same time, we both were like, my bad. He was like, my bad. I was like, my bad. And that was it. And I've done that with my 2 older brothers probably 50 times in my life, and it happens. But when it's like in a frustrating moment and that kind of happens, it is intensified, as I've learned, because people want to know, oh, no, what's wrong? There really is nothing wrong. We had a moment that I've had some of those moments in my 10 years a lot of times, with a coach, with a teammate, somebody. And just I always learn, you always circle back, you make it right, and you keep going. But that kind of stuff happens all the time at practice. Not saying with me and him, I'm saying just with teammates. That stuff happens. And you just make sure you always, circle back, make it right, and we did that. And so I love Erik. I love Erik to death. But I would be completely honest with you, there's no problem.
All love.
Well, I do think like an argument in a game is not, it depends where it's coming from, right? Like to me, Erik is frustrated because the offense sucks. And it's like, it's not about, like F this guy. It's, like everyone wants to win the game. And so like, I don't think like there can be healthy arguments, right? Like, it's not like every argument, like apathy is worse, where it's just like I don't care. And I'm not even going to get worked up because it doesn't matter to me. Like I would have more concern about that than I do about these guys kind of fighting with each other. If you can't get over that and it becomes this huge block that makes offense not work, then that's a problem. But again, like having it out with somebody, usually that will actually help. Like, it's like, there's a reason you go to counseling, right? Like, it's like,
Right.
like you got to talk through it. But that said, like, I don't know. I think we're probably, we've talked about it a lot. We're overplaying it a little bit. But, when we talk about things that didn't work in this game, it was Derek Carr and sputtering Derek Carr. If Derek Carr was a car, you would have to turn it over 3 times before it you would have flooded the engine by the end of the first quarter. And then you would have to take it to the mechanic and be like, well, what's wrong? And he'd be like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. We got to do this. And then he's like, well, okay, well, by the second half, we'll have this figured out. And you're not going to, it's like, you play the way you did today. You beat the Panthers and nobody else. Like, this was a game that you won because you were playing the Panthers. And the Panthers have a way of making other teams look a lot better than they are, at least when you look at the final score. What I will say is that there is the one thing the Panthers do well is limit passing games. They don't stop the run. They don't play well in the red zone. They don't keep teams off the scoreboard. They don't get in the end zone. They don't pass the ball well. They run the ball reasonably well. But what they do actually do well, they play a shell defense. They have talented corners, talented safeties, and they make life hell on quarterbacks in terms of passing the ball. You got to, like, that doesn't explain away everything that happened in this game. But when you look at the numbers throughout the season, that is something they do well. So I think there's a factor there. The Saints ran the ball well, right? And that'll take it away. I don't think Carr was aggressive enough down the field. There were points that he could have gone for it. I do think that he put a pretty good ball into Chris Olave, and I think it was J.C. Horn made a pretty nice play on that. Like, I don't think there was anything wrong with that throw. I think if you were more aggressive at certain points of this game would have looked a lot different in terms of how satisfied you were coming out of it. I think he put on a pretty good ball to A.T. Perry. I like the idea that you're getting A.T. Perry involved downfield. I think that the trust level there is not where it needs to be, and that that red zone mishap against the Falcons definitely did not help. But there was just, like, people have pointed out in the comments, holding the ball too long, checking down. Like, there's points where it's better off to throw the ball into the dirt than to check it down to your running back where he's going to lose 8 yards. I think, like, it's tough because you do want to get Alvin Kamara chances. There is this balance of, like, sometimes it is just, you're better off just get it to Alvin and let him make a play, but not always. Right. And there was
like today, right?
2 instances in this game where basically you lost 8 yards because you just put your running back in the back. And I think Derek played really poorly. And I have a feeling that if Derek, and he says he's honest, but I don't think he's honest about his own health at times. And I think that his injuries limited him, not even the concussion. I think the rib injuries limited him more today than he was willing to let on. And you saw that. I think you saw that manifest. I think it's similar to what you saw in week 4 against the Bucs. This was a very similar game. The difference is you're playing the Panthers. Yeah, that's kind of what I have. Derek Carr didn't work today. And it was a lot more than just that. But I think that, the frustration kind of simmering in the offensive line, the offensive line is like, I don't think we're playing that poorly, but you're getting lit up. And I don't know what to do for you, right? Like, I think that's kind of where that is, to get the ball out, like make a decision. You're a veteran quarterback who can't run. We can't protect you forever. You have to protect yourself. And I think that's where it comes from. And that's where Derek has to be better. And again, like, yeah, you want to boo that? I'll boo that all day long. I thought the only boo that I will take issue with is the boo at the end of that first drive when it's like, you move the ball down the field, you're not going to score every time. You're not going to get a touchdown every time. But like, that was a pretty successful drive that bogged down in the red zone. And it's like, we're booing that. Really? No, I'm all for booing the Blake group we missed from 29. That was bad. But like, that was the only boo of the day that I was like, guys, come on. Like, this is a little much.
They're just waiting to boo.
Yeah, like that exactly. That's kind of, it just felt like it was like the first thing that goes wrong today, we're going to boo. And it was like, you got a 3-and-out, you drove the field, you got a chip shot field goal. Like, that's for, your first drive of the game. Like, it's like your expectations can't be like touchdown or nothing, it's so like, that was the only one. But otherwise I was, like people think that I'm anti-fan now because I'm not like, I think booing just indiscriminately is like kind of unrealistic, but I'm all for it because that was brutal to watch in the second and third quarters of that game.
I think you're actually dead on with Derek Carr being limited somewhat because of shoulder/rib something. I'm not blaming the concussion at all, but something's clearly wrong with his throwing. I would hope so, at least by what we're seeing, because it's not even just the holding on to the ball too long. There's definitely the off-targetness to it. And yeah, there were a couple times maybe a receiver could have made a play for him. I just think overall, though, still not impressed with our $150 investment at quarterback. I understand the fans' anger and I guess their discontent of what they've been seeing, but it's not going to change anytime soon. I'm sorry. I can't say that benching's coming for a Jameis Winston, or they're going to definitely go out and draft that young quarterback. I think they might do something like that in the upcoming, but that's still like eons away right now. I even laugh when, the Cajun Cannon post games like, oh, we got a great chance of beating the Giants, but I don't know about the Rams. I'm like, screw it. I can't even think about the Rams right now.
Yeah, it's funny. This is like it's not the first time that you've mentioned that you've been meant to say $150 million, but you say $150 investment, and it kind of feels like it was like, well, that's what you should have paid, because that's the value you're getting right now.
Yeah, fans would agree with that for sure, right?
Yeah. So I mean, let's move off Carr. We've talked about Carr, like it's not me trying to protect Derek. Everyone thinks I'm a Derek Carr stan because like my take is like, like I think it's unrealistic and unfair to like treat the guy like he's the devil incarnate. And apparently that makes me a Derek Carr stan. It's like, no, like, I just think like we can talk about the play on the field. And then also like, we don't have to pretend that he's, like a murderous psychopath that like shouldn't be allowed to like roam free in society. Like there's a middle ground that we could probably hit. And
no, extremes one to end to the other. You love him or you think he's trash.
Right, it's a very Darth Vader-ish kind of situation going on here.
Absolutes only.
Yeah, exactly. Glad you got that reference. But okay, so let's move on. There's a couple other things that didn't work. I want to talk about them. Tackling has been gross.
Atrocious.
I mean, like, when's the last? I feel like you can count on one hand the number of times that guys have gotten a ball carrier down, the first person to get to him. It's like, what? How is that even like, it's just crazy. Like that Miles Sanders, right? The only point in this game that I was like, wow, the Saints might lose this game is when Miles Sanders like jitterbugged his way for 48 yards down to the 1 yard line. And thankfully, Paulson Adebo decided, I'm going to run over there and tackle the guy because no one else seems to be able to. And that, I mean, like you could argue that was a huge turning point in the game, just the fact that he got there because they, got a tackle for loss on first down. They got a sack on second down. I think they got a throwaway on third down, field goal instead of touchdown. Like, I think the Saints had 14 points on the board at that point. So you're talking about like 14-10 versus 14-6. That's a pretty big difference when you're looking at an offense that can't move the ball. And so much of it is tackling. And like I've said this before, it's not only like, oh, you give up big gains. It's like you have a chance to make a tackle in the backfield and for a 2-yard loss. And instead it's a 4-yard gain. And it'll go in the stat sheet as a 4-yard gain, as if like that was a solid play and you limited the damage. But like really it's a 6-yard net gain because you should have had a 2-yard loss. And that happens constantly. I do think Zach Bond being more involved in the rush finally has helped. But I do think that that's something that has been an issue. It's continuing to be an issue. And in games when you're not playing the worst team in the NFL, it's going to continue to get you. And like Bryce Young ran for a bunch of yards again. It's just so frustrating to watch a defense that is otherwise pretty solid continue to just fail in this vitally important part of the game.
Yeah, the thing is, you see with the quarterback being able to take off, and it wasn't obviously huge yardage overall. What was it, 40-something yards he ends up with? But I feel like it's the situations in which the quarterback is able to take off and convert. It seems like a 3rd and long every damn time.
Yeah, I agree. And there was at least 3, like 3rd and 8 or 3rd or longer that were converted by Derek Carr. I'm sorry, by Bryce Young running. And it's just like, guys, we've been over this. We've talked about this.
Over and over.
How many times? Yeah. Moving on, like this has been a long segment, so we can just get through this last one. But Blake Ruby, come on, man. I thought we talked about this.
Just when we thought you were over the groin issue, they cut the guy on the practice squad. Things were looking good. We thought you were fully healthy, ready to roll. He had gotten some consistency down, we thought. And then, man, oh man, where was that ball going?
Well, so something that one person pointed out, and I'll have to go back and look, is that it kind of seemed like his left foot, like his plant foot, the turf kind of just collapsed on him a little bit, and he kind of lost his footing. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that would at least, because like you don't just miss that kick. Like something happened on the operation, right? Like
someone was trying to tell me something went wrong with the hold. I didn't see that though.
Well, right. Like there's it's like you miss from 50 plus and you're like, well, okay, well, that's sometimes you just miss that kick. You miss from 29.
You should go home immediately.
Yeah. It's like, okay, let's listen to Haas. I thought Haas had a good call on it. Okay. Let's listen to that.
29 yards. This will be from the right hash mark for Blake Grupe. Last week was the first week of the year he didn't have a field goal attempt, and that one was pull hooked to the left, not even close. If you play golf, you can understand. He pull hooked it to the left, missed it.
Yeah, it was just a duck hook into the woods. I hit that drive all the time. But no, I do think it's like when you miss that kick, it's never like, well, he just can't kick a football. Like he literally kicks the football in his sleep. Something went wrong in the operation, but it's like it also just can't be the excuse. You can't miss that kick. The margin for error is so wide. Like all you gotta do is kick it that way, So, and it's frustrating because it's not the first time we've seen it. Like we could say like, well, something went wrong, but like it's happened before. So yeah, like it's just, man, yeah. Every time you think he's got it, he kind of gets on a rhythm. He gets on a roll. And no.
Yeah, I'm steadily falling off the groupie bandwagon, if you want to call it that. Even I was hoping, the rookie could maybe get some consistency going, a little confidence, but I just feel like this is kind of who he is at this point. And I know it's still early on in this young man's career, but I don't know. This one, it was freaking bad.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure I buy that. Like he's a rookie, and that's kind of like the inconsistency is just part of it, right? Like
There's
that's
too
why
many
when
short
you
ones we've seen.
well, right, but that's why when you went with the rookie, it was like, why? Because that's just something that you have to accept with a rookie kicker. Is they're going to be somewhat inconsistent? Like Young Hui Koo is a great example. Like he got
Right.
cut
Chargers
from the
let him go.
Chargers.
Right.
And now he's one of the best kickers in the NFL. But like,
That's
it's
true.
very rare that you see a guy be rock solid from day one, right? Like, so just for perspective, Blake Grupe is 4 made field goals away from tying Will Lutz's rookie record for made field goals in a season. Well, Will was 28. Blake is currently at 24, and he's going to get there. He's going to break that record. He's been more consistent on kicks from 50 plus. He hasn't missed an extra point. But it's just these kind of moments where you're just like, what the hell? And you imagine that over time as he it's not like he can't make the kicks, right? And so, but it's frustrating because you've accepted that as your fate right now when you didn't have to, that you are going to live with the ups and downs of a rookie. And that's what you're getting. And so like, every time you think like, well, okay, yeah, he's got it. He makes 5 kicks in a row against the Falcons. You're like, okay, yeah, he's figured it out. No, but he did make all 4 PATs, which are longer than the kick he missed. So I don't know. It's like when it's worth 3, he gets like, oh no, it's so the pressure too much.
No, and that was something actually post game. You're talking about it. That wasn't mentioned at all, huh? The hold, snap, and the kick on that one, huh?
No, I meant to ask, but then we got to the end and they were like, one more question, and I was like, well,
right.
Okay, it's not going to be that question. Like, there's more important questions to ask, and I'll probably ask about that tomorrow. The problem is like no one's going to have an answer after the game because they haven't.
You're right. He always says we got to look at the tape.
Yeah, that's why those post game press conferences are tough. But all right, that's all I have. Do you have anything else that you wanted to point out before we move on?
Just overall, I guess the fan base today, we didn't have that over explosion of blue in the stands. That it was good to see, at least that not see the blue. I was worried about that.
Yeah, but that's not because the Panthers fans couldn't come.
No, I'm just saying because Panthers fans aren't traveling to watch this team either. So
yeah, like that's. I mean, I don't even. This is the what didn't work segment, but it was like the seats. There were a lot of empty seats.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
There's a gross number of empty seats, and like part of it, it's like a 5-7 team versus a 1-12 team. It's like not exactly the best game in the world to go to, right? But you could get tickets for $4.
I was going to say the secondary market, there were $4 tickets to an NFL game. Parking was way more than that, obviously.
You can't even get a bottle of water for $5.
There you go, right.
I mean, these are like Pelicans prices right now. Anyway, but yeah, that was
sad
rough.
to see for, the team, obviously, because too, when things are rocking or rolling, the dome's unbelievable and obviously a tough ticket.
Yeah.
Not
so
so much
home
now.
games left.
Yeah.
Right. So you got next week, you got the Giants, and then you got the Bucks. I'm sorry, then you got the Falcons in week 18. And so, like, if you get to that point and it's a win and in scenario, I expect people will be there. I expect people will get excited again. But it's like there's a lot of apathy right now, and I can't blame people because why would you, unless you just have always wanted to go to a Saints game and you can't afford it typically, why would you pick this one? Anyway, so let's round out that segment. We're going to come back. We're going to have a quick what did work segment. I think there were, like people are going to pretend that there were no positives from this game. They're wrong. There were good things that happened in this game.
A few.
So we're gonna talk about it. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. It's been kind of a marathon segment here. It's basically a podcast of its own.
Boom, boom, boom.
But we're gonna come back. We're gonna have 2 more segments because we're in for the duration here. Thanks everyone for being in here. If you have any questions, comments you want in the mailbag, throw them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can in the final segment. Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. This is the What Did Work segment of the pod. And no, Derek Carr is not involved in this segment. I take that back. I'm lying because he is somewhat involved. Because one of the things that did work, and it's, and I feel compelled to talk about it, even though like it's going to annoy some people in the sense that this was a terrible game and everything went poorly or whatever. Red zone efficiency. If I'm going to bring it up constantly and say this is a major reason the Saints can't win games is they can't score touchdowns in the red zone.
You got to talk about it when it works.
Right? Alvin Kamara ran for one of them. Jimmy Graham caught one of them. Chris Olave caught one of them. The other one, and there is a trend here. When you are stuck at the fringe of the red zone, when you're talking about the 19-yard line, the Saints offense seems to sputter you. They seem to need to get inside the 10, and when they do, they're a lot more efficient. And say what you want, like that's just when if you identify things that work, you do them. And so I did think that was interesting. But the last two games, they have scored touchdowns on 7 of 8 red zone trips. Right, the 8th one they didn't score on because they missed the 20-some-odd yard field goal. But like to me, if you're trying to look for reasons that maybe this Saints team can strain together a few wins down the stretch of the season, you have to be able to score touchdowns in the red zone, and they did that today. So in terms of what are the positives you can pull out of this game, to me that's one of them.
Yeah, obviously, last game 4 for 4, now 3 for 4. I agree with you. We bitch about it all the time about, they're not doing it. Well, they've rectified that issue at least. So got to point to that. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at one guy in particular as maybe being that spark. Is it Jimmy Graham that's missing piece in the red zone?
Wild.
Crazy thought.
And so, yeah, well, when I mean, I noted this and it was like the red zone / Jimmy Graham, right? That catch he had, it wasn't even a touchdown. It was his only catch of the season. It's not a touchdown, but it was honestly his best catch of the season of the 4 that he has.
Yeah.
But he just went up. He just did the thing that's like, yeah, he can do that. Why don't we do that? He's so tall. Just throw it where he can go get it. He can't jump anymore, but he's still 6'7". How hard is this? How complicated is this? And thank you. I mean, like, it's common sense. And it's like, a lot of times you'll hear like people yell stuff and they're like, why don't they do this? And why don't they do this? And why don't they do this? Why don't they start Jake Haener? And and it's like, guys, it's not realistic. Like you're being a little crazy. Like, calm down, just pump the brakes. Like we can talk this out. But like one of the things, like one of the fan takes that I'm just like 100% on board with, and I have been all season, has been like, why not use Jimmy Graham? It's made no sense, and we've seen it work. And like they're finally like, okay, fine, we'll do it, we'll try it. You guys get your way.
It's just wild to think, and it's not even the fact that he was playing and just overlooked. He was inactive most of this time.
Inactive.
So it just really puzzling. And to me, if anything, that might be one of the more damning things coming on coaching right there then.
I mean, I think it's like, and I've said this, it's a numbers game at a certain point. He doesn't play special teams, and he's your 4th tight end. It's tough. But when you are as anemic in the red zone as the Saints are, I think it's like you're just going to have to take the hit on special teams and figure it out. Maybe make Juwan Johnson play special teams, right? Like if that's the reason you can't have this red zone weapon active, figure it out. And I think that's kind of what the Saints have come to terms with over the last several weeks. Today it was like, well, they don't have Taysom Hill. They got a couple injuries and it's easier. But if they're like, if they come out next week, for example, and everyone's healthy and they're just like, no Jimmy Graham, it's gonna be like,
what's going on?
Anyway, okay, let's move on. One other guy that I thought was had a really impressive day, and he's a rookie. He's going to have ups and downs. Jordan Howden,
big time.
8 unassisted tackles. At least he had a sack. I just think that he's a guy who is every like I've seen people he gets burned in coverage and blah blah blah, but it's like every game he plays, the reps he gets, he's just going to continue to get better, right? Like he's a rookie. And like, again, like you're talking about Blake Grupe, you're going to have rookie struggles. Every rookie is going to struggle, but it's like, okay, what is the potential? What are you building towards? And I think with him, you see a lot of really positive things, and he's just all over the field. He's making plays. I think he does need to improve in coverage in terms of, just getting his head around on the ball. And like, if with a little more savviness in how he plays some of these sets, he's getting interceptions instead of, just knocking the ball down, right? Like, and that's stuff that comes with time. But in terms of, well, you don't have Marcus May, a guy who I don't think was playing well enough, and I think you actually have upgraded to some extent in terms of athleticism and just being able to come up and make a tackle with Jordan Howden. I think that, we're talking about a 5th round pick here. Like, this is not a no-brainer. Yes, definitely going to make an impact. Like, think about guys like Saquon Hampton and like all these safeties that you drafted in the mid rounds over the last 5 years who you've never heard of, right? Like, so for him to be making an impact and to be playing well and to have the trust of the coaching staff at this point, I think it's pretty telling. And so when I'm talking about stock up, and it's like guys that I am excited to watch play and get better and better, he's one of them.
Yeah, he was a dude that seemed to be all over the place today. That I guess that's pretty evident with him leading the team in tackles, and obviously huge plus for this rookie class that has kind of been a bit of a letdown. Obviously, I'm not going to say Brazil's been terrible. He's been okay. Foskey just really not a factor. Kendra Miller, that's been a huge disappointment. But Howden's been somebody I thought that has played at least up to his draft expectation so far.
Yeah, Kendre and Isaiah, I think it's been more health related than anything else.
Yeah.
I think Kendre has popped when he's gotten the opportunity. Got to be able to stay on the field. It's funny. You look at it and you say, well, where's the explosive plays in this offense? Kendre Miller has 2 plays of 30-plus yards this season. That might not sound like a lot, but he's only had like 35 touches. Between the other, 4 running backs that you've talked about, right? And that includes Tony Jones. You're talking about 200-something touches, and no one has a play of longer than 25 yards. So, if nothing else, you get some explosive, ability out of him that you might not see with some of these other guys. He's hit on some screens. Like the play he got hurt on was a 31-yard catch and run against the Bears. So, I think that in the sense of like, why'd you bring him in? What is the upside for him if he can stay healthy? I do think you've seen some positive signs, but I agree it's been disappointing. I think AT, you've seen some flashes. I think it's inconsistency. It's
about
rookie
AT in the
stuff.
class.
It's like you got to trust the guy, especially your wide receiver. But I like Jordan. I think Jordan's going to have a very good career. I don't know if he's going to be a Pro Bowl talent, but I think he's going to have a very solid career in the NFL. Moving on. One other thing that I really liked from today, and I've been waiting. I think I've said wait. Was that 8, 9? I get 10 or 11. The 1-2 punch in the backfield.
Right.
We just haven't seen it. He went out and signed Jamal Williams, and there was a point. There was a goal in mind. And today was the first time all season we've have a pretty good sample size here that you saw Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara complement each other, not just Alvin have a big day and Jamal steal some carries and rest and give him some rest. Alvin had 12 carries for 56 yards, average 4.7 yards per carry, ran for a touchdown. That was his long run, was the touchdown run. Right. It was in the red zone. It was a 9-yard touchdown run. Then Jamal Williams, 11 carries, 43 yards, 3.9 yards a carry, a long of 12. It's like, I don't need Jamal to be explosive, but I need him to gain positive yardage. I need him to fall forward. I need his short gains to be 2-3 yards, not -2. I need him to be effective in short yardage. I need him to be a guy that you get 4th and inches and you feel comfortable handing him the ball and saying, go plow your head into the line, big guy, get some yardage, and we'll keep this thing going. I also want to thank Shy Tuttle for gifting the Saints a first down, because apparently he still had one more play for the Saints in this game. But like, I think the inability to have anything beyond Alvin Kamara at running back this year has been limiting. And for an offense that hasn't been dynamic in the passing game, particularly right now, because you don't have Michael Thomas or Rashid Shaheed or Taysom Hill, or, like, you need that. And especially in this game where the Panthers were going to take away the pass game, they're going to play that shell, they're going to take away the deep balls and say, run the ball. If you can run the ball, you can beat us. And I think the same, the yardage isn't going to jump out at you. Jameis Winston had two attempts for -2 yards because they gave him the privilege of taking the knees at the end of the game. But like, that's the type of efficient running that if you got every week, this team would win a lot more games than it has. So I'm gonna have that. Like, that's a positive thing for me. If you can get, you got 4 games left, you need to win them. If you can get a effective Jamal Williams over those 4 games, life's going to be a lot easier for you.
Yeah, I was definitely thrilled too to see him getting, somewhere with his carries. Usually it was like handoff to Jamal, and it was like, all right, a 2-yard gain, great, and that was it. He was definitely getting, I would say, 5 to 8 yard carries a lot more frequently today in this matchup, and it was nice to see. You could tell he was feeling good in the game. When Chopper Style come on, the dance cam caught him dancing on the sideline. And yeah, you want to see these players obviously having a good time too. And Jamal is that dude with his personality. We just haven't been able to fully experience it, and that's been a disappointment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like Jamal. It's like you want to root for Jamal. He's such a likable character that it's like just do something. Like, do something, and like we'll
get him in the end zone, for crying out loud, though.
Right? Like, he's not a guy who he's the type of player that's like, if you do anything, fans are going to be like, yes, I like that guy. I want him to succeed.
Are we going to get a Jamal touchdown or a Alontae Taylor pick first? Which one?
Man,
that's
tough. I don't know. Alontae did have some nice tackles in this game. Like, we talk about the lack of tackling. I think Alontae is a guy who's just, the willingness to make a tackle is nice, and he's a thumper. When he gets up and to make a tackle, he'll do it.
You can tell he enjoys it, right?
He's not huge. Yeah, right. That's a good way to put it. Like, you can tell he's like, he wants to put licks on people, and in legally, right? Like, not like dirty hits, just big hits, and hits that are gonna stop you in your tracks, right? And so, for a corner who's not a bulky dude, I think it's good.
Shout out to Alontae.
Yeah. A few more. Again, we talked about Paulson Adebo, that tackle to save the touchdown. I think that was a huge kind of momentum moment in the game where it looked like the Panthers were, maybe going to make a game of it. He stopped him at the 1, and the defense held up, forced field goal. He gets a lot of credit there in my book. Isaac Yiadom, low-key, Ike Yiadom has had, a mess, a monster season, an incredible season. Like, if you're talking about a guy who, if he started every week, you might be talking about Pro Bowl. Like, he's been that good. He had 3 passes defensed in this game. Like, he's played so well that teams don't throw at him anymore.
They tried at the beginning.
Well, right. But he's played so well. Like, one of the only blemishes was the Trey Palmer touchdown against the Bucs, which came after he got an interception, and then Adam Prentice fumbled. Like, he should have never even been on the field for that to happen. He ended that drive, but then the offense was like, just kidding, get out there. And then he got beat. But it's like hard for me to get mad at Ike for that. And it's like, he's just been that solid. And for a guy who's kind of been a journeyman in the NFL, he was with the Packers, he was with the Giants, he started with the Broncos. I just think that he has kind of really found himself as a like, he's going to be a starter in this league. I don't know with the Saints, right? Like, but like, he's going to be a guy that like, you could maybe even has trade value at this point. Like, he's been that good. I don't even know what. Let me see. What is his contract?
Yeah, you say trade value. I get scared with that just because we've seen, especially with this team, obviously the corners go down and then need to have these guys around. But I feel you. It's like, if you can get something, there's a lot of holes needed to be filled.
I'm just kidding. He has no trade value because he is on a 1-year, $1 million contract, but he's going to get paid. Now, he's not going to get a top end cornerback deal.
decent money, I would think.
But you're going to look at the tape from this season. Like teams are going to go out there and say, we need a cornerback who can cover in man-to-man situations. And you're going to roll back the tape from this season. And like I doubt the Saints are going to be able to keep him because he's going to get paid, and he's going to get paid well above CB4 money. Right. Anyway, I just think he deserves a lot of credit because he's been thrown in these situations and he's delivered time after time after time. Lynn Bowden Jr.
Another one for sure.
One of my favorite players to just watch. Like if you're at a game, if you end up at a game, and there's no excuses, you can get there. I'll buy you a ticket. If you really need a ticket, I'll buy it for you. But if you're there, do yourself a favor and just kind of like watch Lynn on the sideline and just take a couple plays and just watch him, because he's constantly just running around, hyping people up. Like Jameis does this too. But like Lynn is just so there was a play, Chris Olave on the deep ball that, it was a really nice play by the defensive back. I think it was JC Horn. He got his arm and he dug it out. Who sprinted down the field to kind of grab Chris Olave and pull him up and be like, yeah, get him next. It was Lynn Bowden, right? Like when Erik McCoy came off, ready to fight a grizzly bear, who ran over and got in his face and was like, yo, okay, come on, we got this. It was Lynn Bowden, right? Like if you
glue guy,
exactly, he's a glue guy, and he's a guy who just I don't even know what his role was to start the year. But he's returning kicks. He had a really nice day as a returner.
Definitely, right.
He had a couple really nice plays. He had 4 catches. He had one in the red zone that I think set up Jimmy Graham's touchdown, if I'm not mistaken. He's just a fun guy to watch. He's just always hyped up. If you go through the pictures, if you go on Getty Images and you look up all the pictures of the celebrations from the touchdowns, he's always in the background. Every picture, he is in the background of it, just and just, I don't know. Again, you talk about Jamal. I really like Lynn Bowden. I root for him. He's a fun guy to watch. He's a guy who just kind of hangs around, and I think people kind of forget he's there. But I don't know. It's stock up, whatever. I don't even care. I'm just I feel like he deserves some credit because there is value in that. There is value in someone who's just a hype man and can make a play.
And how limited yardage was for the Saints, today. He provided some good field position, obviously, for them, which was needed.
Yeah, no, I think he's been a spark plug as a returner. I think he's just easy to like. And so, good for him. I think he deserves some credit. One other guy, Chris Olave, I talked to him after the game. He felt like shit this morning when he woke up. He's been sick all week.
I love when you asked him about the flu game and he was kind of like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Right. No, he just he gutted through it, right? You wouldn't know. He's just kind of miserable out there, but he made some plays. That touchdown. It's easy to look at the score and be like, well, yeah, it's just a touchdown and a 22-point win. But at that point, you needed that score. That score was big. That basically iced the game, and you went and scored another touchdown. But he took a hit. One of the things that we talked about in the last offseason was he needs to get tougher. He needs to be better in contested catches. And I think that he's done a good job of improving in that part of the game. He gutted through it today. Earlier this season, it's easy to forget. There was all this talk about oh, he's not a professional. He's loafing. He's doing this. Well, the last few weeks, I think he's really stepped up, and the yardage won't jump out at you today. But what he played through, I just think he deserves a lot of credit. So I think that Chris has earned a lot of props over the last few weeks, in my opinion.
And to be fair, Jeff, no one's yardage is dumping out today.
It's true. The pass rush I thought had a solid day, although I hesitate to give anyone credit because apparently, Desmond said on one of the last podcasts,
yes,
you just show up, you're going to get 4 sacks, and that's what the Saints got today.
Shout out to Des, right?
Yeah. The other thing, and this isn't a stock up, but it's just a kind of a weird note, something that doesn't happen very often. The blue injury tent on the Saints side of the field never went up. Not once. This is the first time all season. I can't remember the last time that's happened. But it was like, man, I at a certain point I was like, I haven't talked in a while on the sideline, and I was like, oh, it's because there hasn't been a single injury to report on. Thankfully, Derek Carr and Erik McCoy got in a fight. It gave me something to talk about. But yeah,
No, that's good because you've been hanging around. Like, there's been some games I'm just like, man, you just hanging out at the injury tent looking for something.
Oh man, yeah, like the Falcons game, right? The Vikings game. I mean, it was just crazy how much time I spent creeping on the injury tent. And so for a team that's been hurt and been dealing with a lot of health issues,
yeah,
I think that's a positive, right? Like you came out of this game, and I'm sure you're going to have some guys crop up on the injury report with something or another, but you really can't afford to have a lot more injuries. Like you're real thin right now, particularly at the wide receiver position, and so to get out of this game without any more major issues on that front is a positive. So that's the last one. That's my last silver lining, whatever. But like, again, you look at this and there are some positives to pull out of it. It's not all bad. You did win the game 28-6. The offense is obviously a huge concern. Derek Carr is a huge concern. Like I think you're looking at a team that's going to be making pretty significant changes when the season ends. But, it's like you kind of look for, okay, can you get things going in the right direction so you can at least, it's like if you're going to sit there and be mad that they're not getting a better draft pick, whatever, I think for the city, for the fan base, for the team itself, making a run to the postseason this year would be, I don't know, very positive. And I'm not going to root against it. And if you are, then I'm not. Then I'm not. You're not my target audience.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm getting a little aggravated with some stuff. Is like folks want to see the team fail to improve their draft stock because we're not going to do anything in the playoffs anyway. And I'm like, that's a shit ass attitude to have.
It's just not why I watch football, right?
Right.
Like, and it's like if that's your thing, that's fine. You do you, but that's not how I'm gonna approach it. And if that's what you come to this podcast hoping to hear, then I'm sorry, you're going to leave disappointed. But that's just kind of how I am. And right now you're looking at a team that has won a game. They are 6-7, and they are in a 3-way tie for first place in the NFC South. And I'm not gonna try to convince you that you should be, jumping for joy that the Saints are, keeping their head above water in the worst division in the NFL. I'm not. But that's the reality of the NFC South. And so you just kind of have to take it for what it is. And hey, you have meaningful football to watch over the last month of the season. There's a lot of teams that can't say that. The Panthers have not had meaningful football to watch in months. So I don't know. It kind of is what it is. But that's I'm not gonna sit here and pretend everything is rosy and everything is perfect. But you do have a chance to maybe make something happen, and it's crazier things have happened.
I keep seeing this is in the post-game show. I've seen it popping up at the chat. It's like, how can you take anything positive from beating a 1-win team? I don't know. Shit, we got the win. We snapped the skid, and it's back to at least the positive turn of there's a chance that you can win this division and make the postseason. And yeah, I am about that too. I'm not about let's pull the tank and try to get the best pick possible. That's just not interesting at all, and would not be anything that you're crazy if you think coaches and players are thinking about draft picks.
Well, and I'm also looking at this beyond this season too, where even if you do fire a coach or you change your entire offensive staff, you still these players are still you're not going to just delete the roster and start over. This isn't a Madden franchise. So guys like Jordan Howden, guys like Chris Olave, right? Like these young players that I want to see play well and improve. Those are the guys I'm going to be watching, whether you want to see this team succeed or fail. Like those are the positives I'm looking for. And it's not a coincidence that those are the ones I pointed to. Anyway, that's it. Anything else you want to point out before we move on?
I know you mentioned the pass rush, the D-line, whatever. I'll also shout out to Demario Davis. I don't think he's ever been not in the positive, but man, stock up on that dude. He seemed to be one that was all over the place and definitely harassing the quarterback today.
Agreed. But all right, let's wrap this up. We'll come back. We'll do a mailbag. Then we'll get the heck out of here. This is Inside Black and Gold. I am Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. One more time around the sun. Let's go. This is just I should have done this beforehand, but I'm still going through and starring some comments. So,
well, I'm better off talking about this terrible, no good win than watching the Eagles right now. So I'll take it.
oh, they're doing bad. They were down 10-0.
Oh, it's worse.
Yeah, what's the score?
24-6 in the third. About to start the fourth.
I did think it's funny that the Cowboys attempted a 60-yard field goal in the first quarter of that game, which is just like, man, it must be really their kicker is. They must have a lot of confidence in there.
They're feeling it right now. That's for damn sure. Unfortunately.
All right, it's a lot. There's a lot of comments. You guys say a lot.
At least there was no one being critical for us not cursing today.
It's only a matter of time. Those mother effers. People keep saying like they should hire Drew. I always find that funny. I was like, Drew's not going to coach. What make like people seem to think that it's like the Saints just don't want to hire him, as if like he's like texting like, you want me yet? You want me? No, Drew's. We talked about this in this morning on the show. I don't think people realize it's like being a coach is actually more time consuming than being a player.
Facts.
And it's for way less reward, for way less money. I just think it's funny.
There's the Dak Prescott I love.
Did he throw a pick?
Sack, fumble, touchdown.
Ooh. Today was the toilet bowl. That's a good way to put it.
Eesh. Sadly, that would have been the 3-0 game if we had to endure that matchup. Yeah, like
Dooney
Drew
says, can't
talk-
even find a good comment. No, I can find good comments. I'm just trying not to miss them because people have been making comments.
talking
Jeez,
about
you guys are so negative all the time. I don't understand it.
back to the stuff with coaching. Even when Drew filled in at Purdue, he made it pretty clear, like, I'm just doing this as a favor.
Yeah.
I have no interest in being a full-time coach right now.
Zero interest. He doesn't want to do it. Like, and it's not that uncommon. Like, people seem to think like, oh, well, yeah, he's just because he could be a good coach. Like, Hall of Fame players, like, you don't see a lot of Hall of Fame players good into coaching, right? Like, it doesn't happen that often because it's like you've already achieved. Like it's, coaching is like the most disappointing career in terms of like either it goes well or everyone hates you.
And I think pretty much even when it's going well, there's a lot of people that hate you anyway.
Right, I agree with that. All right, let's and we're back on Inside Black and Gold. And we're going to get into the mailbag. I'm Jeff Nowak. This is Steve Geller. We're going to make this reasonably quick because we've been on here forever already. And here's a comment. And I just think this is funny. So West Bank Rick, who, I don't know, do you live in the West Bank or is that just kind of a catchy name? I don't know. Pelicans fan. He says, we were not that negative 4 years ago. And like, I agree with this to an extent. But here's the thing. 4 years ago, I was arguing with people about like, guys, I think that Drew Brees is still way better than any other option. And I was told he's got a noodle arm. They should fire him. Sean's been drunk for the last 4 years and he hasn't been trying and all he cares about is his house in Florida and this and that.
We need a mobile quarterback.
But everyone said like, we need to move on. We need to rebuild. We need to do this. And it's like, I guess, but like to pretend that everyone was fine and dandy, it's not true. There's always something. It's always something. And it's just like, what's better than worse? And what's worse than better? And I just think it's funny that like the short-term memory, it wasn't this bad. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't this bad. But like, trust me, all I heard about in 2020 was Drew Brees' noodle arm and how they couldn't wait to get a quarterback in here that could throw the ball down the field. It's just kind of funny. Like it's always something. But to pretend that everyone was like, this is it's like, oh, we knew we were in the good old days when they were here. And nah, since 2016, absolutely not. Like everyone took for granted that 2017 to 2020 run as if like that was normal. And now I think people are realizing that it's like, it's a lot harder to get to than he might have seemed at the time.
And turns out they weren't wrong about the noodle arm. He could have been better off throwing with his left hand.
He did have a noodle arm. Like, don't get me wrong. And now we're learning about how bad that injury, like how his arm was degrading. It's like, yeah, that's true. But he was still that talented, even with a noodle arm. It's just kind of funny. I just think it's funny because like I remember having these debates with people like vividly about how they're like, oh, Drew couldn't get it done. He's anyway.
Time to move on, right?
Yeah. So it's like again, it's way worse now. But this is what I was trying to tell people back then was like, guys, it's gonna suck. You're not gonna be happy. You're gonna be mad. And it's like you could say it's because of Dennis Allen. It's like anybody. There's a reason no one wants to be the quarterback or the coach that replaces the Hall of Fame quarterback or coach. Because like whoever replaces Dennis Allen, the bar is gonna be so damn low. Like think about that. Like in order for Dennis Allen to have been successful in this transition, you're talking about a guy who's been pretty close to 500, right? Like you're going to get to the end of this season. You're probably going to be somewhere around there. Like I think the Saints are probably going to go 9-8, maybe 10-7, but most likely 9-8. And like, you're going to be like, oh man, the worst thing ever. And then someone's going to come in and go 10-7. And you're like, finally,
I knew it.
I just think it's funny. But no, I mean, like, trust me, I'm not happy. I'm not a happy camper right now either. But all right, let's, West Bank Rick. No, you're not childish. I think people took my rant the other day, to mean like, I think that Saints fans are petulant children. And I meant it more in the sense of, if you think that booing is going to influence the decision-making of the front office, you're wrong, because they're going to actively be the adults in the room, and that's how they're going to view the booing. right? Like, again, I've said this in this podcast, like, go ahead and boo. They're going to play like that, boo. I fine, go ahead. I'm never going to be the guy booing, but do what you got to do, because that was brutal. But, I appreciate you.
Yeah, I don't think it's childish for not cheering at all. I understand disgruntled fans too.
Yeah, no, I get it. It was very quiet. West Bank Rick says he used to call it on WWL, but Bobby would cut him off after 5 words. I'm sorry that happened to you. Anyway, okay, let's get into more. Chris Pete, how many more games do you think the Saints will win? I think this is an interesting question because the answer is not 0. And so it's like, so the Giants game, like, you got to win that game. There's no excuse to not win that game. I put that game in the category of this game today, in that, like, if you can't go out and win that game, then this team doesn't even deserve to talk about itself as a team that should have ambitions. Like, you're just that team. You're a bad team if you can't beat Tommy DeVito and the Giants, right? A team that's really not trying, because they do have their first round pick.
Well, what's crazy is the Giants, obviously a hot team going into Monday Night Football, could theoretically win a third straight game and come to New Orleans trying to win their fourth. I know that's mind blowing though at the moment.
Who are they playing?
They're playing the Packers.
They're gonna get their shit rocked by the Packers.
But they're home.
Doesn't matter. It's not going to be a pretty game, because Jordan Love is actually playing. I've gotten into arguments with people that Jordan Love isn't terrible. Like,
right?
People, it's like, but it's like, just give him time. Like, that's the one of my biggest pet peeves is, like, if someone's not good right away, and they're terrible. Like, they don't have a chance. They can't get better, and it's just not true. Like, Jordan Love, I think he had a good start, and then he had struggles. He had a few games where he threw a bunch of interceptions and he wasn't good. His last 3-4 games has been very good. And that's kind of like, you got to give guys time to be bad. It can't all be perfect all the time. If Pat Mahomes started as a rookie, he would not be the Pat Mahomes that you see today. He would have been a struggling rookie. Like Bryce Young, he kind of looked like Zach Wilson back in 2021 to me. He looked shell-shocked in that game. Sure. And like, that's why I'm very much a don't always start the rookies, because you can ruin their careers. And like, guys who could have had success don't, because they just get kind of derailed before they even start. But how many more games do you think the Saints will win? I'd love to be pie in the sky and say 4. If you can beat the Giants, then, you give yourself a chance. I think it's more likely they win 3. I think they probably win. I think they, if you can get on a run, you can win 2 in a row and you can go out to LA. I think you could probably beat the Rams. I think you could figure out a way. The Rams defense doesn't scare me. Like, it's the good defenses that this team is going to have a hard time beating. I think they beat the Falcons in week 18. I'm worried about the Bucs in week 17. I think you drop that game and you end up 9-8, and it's a question of, okay, where do the Bucs land in terms of 10-7 or 9-8 or 8-9? So I would guess 3. But
I'm a slightly tad more negative, and I think I'd go 500. They go 2-2 the rest of the way.
That's possible.
Just because from what they've showed me, they're a 500 team, so that's what I'm guessing they'll end up closing on the way out.
Yeah, and it's also tough to project, because if you do lose to the Rams and the Bucs, then week 18 you're not going to see a representative effort. Like, you're gonna, like, I'm not saying they're going to try to lose, but they're
no, right.
But maybe it's a Jake Kaner game.
Jake Kaner, there's a possibility.
Right, exactly. Because you have your own first round pick. That's what I was talking to Deuce about. It was like this morning. It was like, it's like, if the Saints lose today, it's the all bets are off. Like, it's going to be ugly. But at least you have your first round pick. That's why last year to me was more frustrating than this year, because not only were you inconsistent, you were handing that pick to the Eagles no matter where it landed. And
right, like, and as you saw the losses mount, the anger just rose in Saints fans. The fact that we don't have, this isn't even our damn pick we're getting.
Well, right, because you had a chance last year. You were bad enough last year and early enough in the process. You didn't have Derek Carr. It was DA's first year. You were going to survive it no matter what. Yeah. That you could have potentially lost a couple games down the stretch because you're not necessarily trying to win. and ended up with a top 10 pick, because that pick would have been better than 10 if you had owned it, because you probably would have just been like, you know what, Philly, you can have this one.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, Cleveland in the freezing cold, pass. Right. Like, you probably don't win those games unless you have, you're not going to tell guys to lose, but
I hear you. Right. Exactly.
anyway, so I think that's what makes, but that is what makes that Week 18 game a little tough to project right now in terms of this question. But I would say 3. I'm hopeful, and the thing is, like, if you can go, like, we want to talk about this team like it doesn't have a chance, but there is a scenario where you go into the playoffs on a 5-game winning streak.
Man, I want some of those good drugs.
Yeah, I know. I'm crazy. I don't even know why I said that. What am I talking about? I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everyone listening. You don't deserve that.
Look at that optimism.
West Bank, Rick. The crowd was very quiet. Sure was. I haven't heard intros that's that quiet since COVID.
Ouch.
Yeah. Like, the only guys who got cheers, Alontae Taylor got. It's kind of funny because you kind of learn the players that people actually care about. Like, Alontae Taylor got a cheer, Tyrann Mathieu got a cheer, Cam Jordan got a cheer. I think Paulson Debo got a little bit of a cheer. Like, not great, not as, but like you could hear people. But like half the defense, it was just like I don't care about that guy.
Yeah, I think they learned. Hey, we're not going to introduce the offense.
Yeah, they made a good decision. Demetrius Ramsey says Steve looks like he's drunk all the time.
Well, not all the time.
Just, I don't know. Just figured you want to know. Figured you want to know what they're saying about you.
I only had one for the podcast, and it's been out, and I did not refill because I did not want to get loaded.
Eddie Culp says, I'm actually drinking leftover sake from dinner the other night.
Okay.
So, yeah. I'm a weirdo.
Hey, whatever gets the job done.
Eddie Culp says Saints would have lost playing any other team today. They're not a winning division the way they have played the last 4 games. If you go, you want to see a team that the Saints probably could have beat today playing exactly the way they played. I would point you to the Raiders.
Yeah.
And or the Vikings. And I understand that the Saints lost to the Vikings a few weeks ago. This is a different team right now than the one the Saints played. But like I think the Saints could have beat them. But I understand what you're saying. I would say there might be 2 or 3 because there are some bad teams in the NFL that you would have still beaten playing the way you played. But I agree with you. Like, the Saints are not beating the Bucs. They're not beating the Falcons. They're not beating the Rams. They might beat the Giants playing the way they played today. But it was not good. So I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, you might be able to throw the Pats in there, but who knows if, once you got Zappy running the controls now.
Yeah. The Patriots won this week.
Right.
They beat the Steelers, a team that has something to play for, who's now, you want to talk about disgruntled. Yeah. Losing to the 2-10, 3-10 now Patriots. Trap 504 says, I don't think Carr has been healthy since the Green Bay game. Yeah, I you're probably right. I know you're right in terms of the shoulder, in terms of he is still getting work done on that, and it's like he's maintaining it every week. But like, again, today was about more than just like the Panthers are a good pass defense and the offense didn't have a rhythm. Didn't look right.
At all.
I wouldn't say he missed a ton of throws where you were like, well, that clearly is something limiting him. I just think like there was just a mobility part of it. Like he's not a mobile guy, but even by those standards, like he couldn't move at all today. And it's like he should get, it should be less and less over time, but yeah.
No, unfortunately, the deal with the shoulder, it's going to probably be an ongoing issue, obviously, week to week, as they say. The rib injury, though, like, how long is that sucker going to take to heal? I can't imagine taking those pops is going to help at all.
Yeah, it's tough. I will say, I don't think he took any huge hits today, but he took enough that you're just like, yeah, it's probably going to be sore. Tim Fabenro says, y'all want to see the highest level of petty. Watch DA send Jameis out for the kneel down.
Oh, man.
And I saw. I think it was TJ. He tweeted this. He was like, this is a shot at the "We want Jameis" chance, right?
Yeah.
And in most cases, I would be like, No, you're wrong. There's no way. That's not something that happened. Like DA wouldn't do that. He's not playing that level of chess. But like Sean would have done that. And part of me thinks like, oh, it's just random. But I also like, I'm almost like I am pretty sure that that's exactly why he sent Jameis out there. And honestly, say what you want, I think it's fucking hilarious. And not because it's like I like Jameis. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, the Jameis people want Jameis in there, whatever. I just think like that's if you're gonna troll right. And I do think it's very funny. But yeah, because I didn't even notice. I didn't notice that because I was like getting ready to get on the field. And I was trying to think of the questions to ask Chris Olave and this and that. And like the game was over, right? It's not like I had to watch to see like, oh, what's going to happen. And then I looked at the stat sheet and I was like, wait, Jameis has 2 rushes for -2 yards. Weird. And I did think that was very funny.
You can go down for victory formation. Thanks a lot, kid.
Well, it's like you see that in basketball, right? Like you see like the coach's son gets in at the end of the game, right?
For sure.
And but like, you don't see that in the NFL. But anyway, I genuinely do think that it was a petty thing. It was a decision because it's not like it's like, oh, I don't want to put Derek out there to get him hurt. It wasn't like that last drive against the Bucks. But yeah.
And poor Jameis gets negative stats out of all of it.
Right, he loses yardage because of it. Well, one of the funny things too is like, Derek Carr's passing line looks even worse than it was because he had like 3 plays go for like negative. Like there were pass plays in that game that went for like -8 yards, multiple. So it's like he didn't have a lot of passing yards to begin with. So when you start chopping 8 yards off the total, it's like, holy crap, it's going down. It's going the wrong way. I think in the third quarter he might have had negative passing yards.
Yeah, that was one. Obviously, you look at the stat sheet and you just see Kamara 3 -11. You're like, what?
Yes, that's true. St. John Butler says, do you think injuries factored heavily into Carr's passing production, or was this just a subpar performance?
A little of both.
I mean, heavily, I don't know. Did it factor in? I would say yes. Because
right.
like, even, like I think people have been frustrated with Derek Carr this year, but even by those standards, like you've seen much better days than this. Like he had 3 consecutive 300-yard passing games. Like he's put up yardage. You also, you were limited in terms of your weapons. Like so like that's part of it, right? Like he missed some reads, he missed some throws, he got hit. So I don't know. I won't put it all on the health. Like I don't, but like I think you're right. I think it's a bit of both. Like I think he didn't play well, and also there was something limiting from the injuries. But it's a good question. He'll never tell you. All right. Let's see. One more good question, and then Francisco Pomar says he made Winston kneel because he didn't want to further mess up Carr's stats. Come on. You're talking about the -2 rushing yards. You think that's?
Yeah, I guess when you look at Carr's passing yards, and then you'd go, "What? -2 rushing? This guy's trash."
I get maybe it's like in NBA games where like they'll hold the ball until the last second and they'll pass it so they don't get the turnover, and like I think Rob Perez calls it the ball-bonic plague.
Very good.
All right.
It is sad though. I mean, I feel like after the Chicago win, there was a lot of negativity and anger, and sadly for this one too. And I hope that folks enjoy their victory Monday a hell of a lot more than they are post game right now.
Lehman Park says, I will have my paper bag ready next week. Also, I will draw Jeff's face on it. I am interested to see your interpretation. The nose be pretty big. You got to have the caveman eyebrow, like the caveman forehead. Yeah, a little, I got a little baby chin. You got to have the beard that is not maintained whatsoever.
I'm me, curious. I'm obviously, for that, I get angry because we are way far away from paper bags here, folks.
Right, you're 6-7. like I get it. It's frustrating. You're 6-7. You're not like you saw a team today that should be considering paper bags. Like
Right. You look at the Panthers have been going through and the owner and the leadership over there. I have no faith in what's going on with that organization.
See, I don't like this. He says, "No worries, I don't want to look good on the bag. I want this the caricature with like the most ridiculous features possible. I want to know it's me." Anyway, I appreciate the attention. Let's see.
Who that?
This is funny. I did think it's funny. Jordan Love is good. He needs reps. Derek Carr is bad after 50 million or 5 million reps.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thanks for making me laugh, Francesco.
I can't argue with that. Oh, there was one. And this is one that I think is funny. Saint for Life says, watch, some of these players will ask out after the season, even if they take a hit, they want to win. This team is garbage. Where you going? Like, that's, again, and I started with this, I'm going to finish with this. Look around the NFL and tell me it's like, what, are you going to only play for 5 teams? Like, you're gonna be like, well, I can't play here. Go send me the Eagles. Send me to the Cowboys. Send me to the Chiefs. The Bills are 7-6, right? Like, send me to the cold. Send me to the Vikings so I can live in the cold and the wilderness and be 6-7. You know, the same record. So I think that's overplayed, guys. I really do. This team is frustrating. This team is bad. It's not like these guys are showing up at work and sitting in their locker with their head down like, oh, I'm back again.
No, and Saint for Life followed up here, Jeff, saying you guys are making it sound like the Saints are the 49ers. How have we made that? How that is ridiculous to say. Come on, you don't believe that.
I here for 90 minutes and told you how much this game sucked. I don't know if I could be more exasperated, but like, again, we are talking about a 22-point win here. Like, it was not pretty, but I've seen people say they barely beat the Panthers. They won by 22 points. Look, you got there the way you got there, but like,
yeah, it wasn't satisfying enough. I know it sucks when a win isn't satisfying enough.
I agree with that, but like, everyone was mad when they beat the Bears by 7,
right?
Because they didn't do what they did today, and people acted like, well, if only you had scored on those possessions in the fourth quarter, then we would be happy. Well, what happened today? You got those possessions and you scored on them, and yet we're still talking about, well, they sucked. It doesn't matter. They only won by 22. I don't know. I think
you're
at this playing point, an NFL team.
At this point, happiness for people is going to be firing Dennis Allen, I think.
Yeah, and I get it. I understand it.
That's happiness at this point.
You know, and I think it's like, okay, do you fire Dennis Allen or do you rebuild a lot of the offensive staff? And maybe you look at it and say, you hire an up-and-coming offensive coordinator who then could potentially succeed Dennis Allen. Is that the way you go? Or do you tear it all down to the studs? I don't know. But at the end of the day, this season is this season. And we are long past the point where, like, this was probably the game. This is probably the last chance.
The tipping point, right?
I think that's probably why there's some exasperation from a subset of people who knew that if the Saints lost this game, I think there was a pretty, not a guarantee, but there's a chance. Like, there was a chance that you made some legitimate staff changes. You didn't lose this game. You won this game. And so I think from here, it's like you're getting to the end of the season. It's the final month. Like, you're not, wherever it goes from here, you're just riding it out. And I think that was the idea anyway. But I think that's just kind of where you are. But this idea that there's everyone in the locker room is just like dying to get out. I don't know. I think they understand where they are. The team understands where they are, and they want to end this thing the right way, and they're going to all pull the same direction. That's my read on it. And whether you believe that or not, whether you think I'm full of shit, you do you. But yeah, you asked the question, I answered it.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a lot. Obviously, what's it going to take for this team to do something? It's going to take the offseason, one, and two, it's going to take Dennis Allen to not make the postseason. But I am more and more convinced, Jeff, that some way there is going to be changes to this offensive staff one way or another. And I don't know. I can't guarantee that Carmichael is out, but from O-line, tight ends, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this offensive unit. Even coaching, I mean.
Okay, so I lied. There's one more that I want to talk about, but it's only because I completely forgot about this, and it's hilarious. Willie Cameron says, DA threw a red flag when the Panthers snapped the ball for the next play. That explains why this guy needs to be fired. I thought it was funny. It was like, DA, you can't even challenge right. What are you doing, man? And it was like, what? I mean, that was pretty obvious. I saw it from from where I was across the field, which I guess he's on the same vantage point, but it's like, it was pretty clear that Miles Sanders went out of bounds. Why are you waiting? At a certain point, you just need to make that call as the head coach. You don't have to get someone from upstairs.
Right. To wire you down.
That's not that looks pretty clear. It's like, just throw the goddamn flag, man. Well, worst case scenario, you lose a timeout. And in doing so, you get a timeout then. It was like a third down. It was a big play, and it was a pretty awful spot. Anyway, I just think that was funny because you saw the red flag go up, but I almost think he threw it too high in the air. So the refs didn't see it right away. If you you gotta just throw it at the ref's face, so they can't miss it. It just kind of fluttered in the air, and by the time it hit the ground, everyone was like, "Well, they already ran the play, you idiot." I did think that was very funny. It's not a good reason to hate the coach, but I did think it's like when there's already this level of resentment toward a coach, and then you get something like that, and it's like, what do you come on, man? I just think that's funny. But that's it.
I don't say I feel bad for DA, but I feel like anything the dude does, he's on the shit list for a lot of folks.
Yeah, he can't win. There's no winning.
Nah.
There's only levels of things that happen.
Levels.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Keep chopping. Yeah, there you go.
So you say we need to keep chopping wood, but what happens when you are chopping so much wood that you accidentally miss and cut your leg off? Do you keep chopping then, or do you call an ambulance?
You keep on chopping. That's what it's what you need.
Oh my gosh. All right. This is Inside Black and Gold. This went off the rails several minutes ago, but we just continued for some reason because we just can't help ourselves. But all right. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Bell. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Ring the bell on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave a rating, leave a review. Check out the latest on WWL.com. News, notes, analysis. Follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak, Steve at Steve Geller, WWL. And as always, stay frosty. No, that's not what I say. I say who dat, go Saints. What you got, Steve?
Try and enjoy Victory Monday and be positive, folks. I know it was just the lowly Panthers, but I'll take the W and enjoy it, please.
Sounds good. All right. Be easy, y'all. Peace.
Peace.